Hi everyone, Brienne from Pixite here today, and I'm going to be continuing on with the animal theme. I'm going to be coloring a rhino right now, and I have a reference picture up just to kind of give me ideas for texture on his skin. Rhinos have very rough skin, as we all know, so I just want to demonstrate that somewhat if I can. So I'm going to be using a couple different tools that I don't normally use that much because I want to show that they can be used to create texture as well. And yeah, I'm going to do the background. I'm going to do a red kind of sunset background happening, African sunset as you will. So to start, yeah, maybe I should use my fade. I was gonna use my airbrush, but fade does quicker coverage. So I have all these beautiful reds down here that I was kind of playing around with. So I'm just gonna grab one of those. I'm just gonna pull it in most directions. I want to get this gradient kind of color happening here. Okay, and then go to my bloom tool, and I'm just going to get some quick and easy kind of a sun type background happening there. And then I'm going to go and need to find a nice orange. So I'm going to use an orange, and I just want to kind of blend that through too. Maybe a little bit of a brighter yellow. I just want this nice blended look of colors happening in the background. So I'm going to go back to my recently used colors now that I have pulled quite a bit of different oranges and reds and whatnot. And I'm going to grab my watercolor tool. So with my watercolor tool, I'm just going to tap it around in places. I want to get more of a textured looking sky. Bring down the opacity and just kind of move things around here. I want the darker edges on this sky, and then I want more of a lighter center with, you know, other colors mixing and blending, of course. I'm going to be doing some light effects on the rhino after I've colored his skin. So that's why I'm going with this kind of background. And you just keep on going. Mixing it up, and I want some little bit of color down here too, coming from underneath chin. Just a little bit more towards the arch. I just want to make the illusion like it's layered colors. And then go reach the pastel brush. This is the brush that I want to touch base on because I started really using it a lot as of late. And there's so much cool stuff that you can do with it. It's a really good blending tool. So if you bring up your opacity and your brush size a little bit here, and you just very gently, you rub it around the edges, you can blend all these colors very effortlessly. Now I'm going to warn you to stay away from the edges of your page with the pastel because it grabs color and pulls it away. So you might want to stay away from edges. I don't sometimes because I want the look, and then I just go over and color match and like get the edges matched and working or whatever. So like, let's say my edge was like that and it was pushed out. I could go and color match here, take out my airbrush and fix it. I don't need to do that because I'm going to try and avoid it as much as I possibly can. Just want to make like this Sahara kind of desert sunset happening. Just want to get a little bit more blended, darker colors here. And I've been really liking the streaky sky kind of look where you get these like streaks happening in different colors going through the sky. It's not super noticeable here, but a way that you can get that look is by going to your paintbrush, bring down your opacity. You can leave your brush size up. And then you can just put these streaks, maybe even a little bit more down. And then you can put streaks kind of happening through your sky. Just mixes the colors nicely too, right? Because then you get lines of different colors going through. And you can go over them and over them until you get the look that you want. And you don't have to worry about the paintbrush pulling your edges either. So you can just go right to the edge. And you get this nice streaky sky. Sorry if you hear the tapping there. And then let's go to back to pastel. We're just going to blend out these streaks a little bit because pastel is pretty much a blending tool, which is really cool. And it does add texture. It's like a textured blend, which is really why I started using it. I started looking for different ways to blend color, especially on animals and in skies and whatnot, and started experimenting more and more with the pastel brush, and I really liked the results that I was getting, so I just kept on going with it. See, and there's the sky that I'm wanting. I'm wanting this nice sunset behind this rhino's head here and under the chin a little bit. And I'm kind of neglecting the bottom here, so I should go down here for a minute or two. Just blend stuff out down here as well. And just play with your opacity and your brush size. Super important to gauge what the effects will be, and how hard you press as well makes a huge difference. So definitely play with your opacities, your brush sizes, and how hard you press. Like right now you can hear the click of my pencil, but I'm actually pressing very, very lightly, even though you can hear that clicking, which I apologize for. So, and then I'm just gonna go in with my pencil a little bit here towards the bottom. Grab my pastel. Just wanted to have a little bit more texture towards the base, is why I was just trying out my pencil there. And a great feature that you can always use if you're not satisfied with something is you can always take out your blur tool. And the blur tool makes for you can make distant backgrounds with the blur tool, which it looks far away. And then if you color over top of it with a solid color, it'll give the illusion that that's close up and whatever's in behind that's like blurred or faded is further away. So it's a really fun tool to play with. So I'm just gonna go to my airbrush and do that thing that I could tell I pushed color away from this edge. So I'm just gonna go touch it up. Same with over here. Pulled some color away here. So just go and fix that. And I'm gonna go back to my pastel brush. A little bit of a glow coming up over here, just a little. I'm pushing away though, I don't want to push from like this way, I want to push this way. Because if I push that way, I'm not pulling color from my edges as much. Still pull a little bit, but it's not as much. I'm gonna have to fix it again there. I just wasn't getting the blend that I was looking for on this side. I want it to flow through and look natural, so I had to do something there. Okay. I'm gonna go and outsource some colors from one of my absolute favorite palettes. I use it a lot, is the Neon palette, because I really like this red here that's in this Neon palette. I use it for a lot of things, and I like the orange and I like the yellow as well. I gotta be careful because I don't want to take too much of that textured line work that I did with the paintbrush there. Now I'm going to go to my airbrush. Just fixing those edges I pulled color away from. You can see I'm getting like this streaky sky happening here. I like doing the animal pieces because I like doing fun backgrounds with them. So when I'm coloring this and you're watching me, you get to see more than me just coloring an animal. You get to see the whole effects of everything, which I think is some of the funnest part of coloring, is making these effects. I'm just blending a little bit more here. Blend until I'm happy. Don't be afraid to flip your canvas so that the motion that you're going in feels fluid and effortless. It's such a simple thing, but it really does help. Now I'm going to bring out my blur. I'm just going to try something. I just want to see if I can blend these edges a little bit here. No, I don't like it. It doesn't look right. Okay, so what we're going to do to fix it is I'm going to use the paintbrush. Nothing to fix, I just want these lines extended. So I'm just going to color match and just extend them. It's hard to get that right balance that I'm looking for here. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. I'm liking it. You know what you could do too is you could go to your glitter. I'm just gonna try it. I always bring my opacity all the way down when I use glitter. And you can just add some streaks of that in there too if you want. Just kind of blend it all the way up. I don't want it looking too streaky though, with the glitter anyway. Okay, now just a couple more touches and I think we'll be good. gonna try the pencil tool here just to make a couple more dominant lines going through. So you get that mix of glitter, but you get the not too much, right? You don't want too much. Okay, I'm gonna stop fiddling around with this because I could honestly go on forever with this background. I'll come back to it because I still got a little bit of work to do back there, but I got my base and I can blur and I can add laser and stuff in after. I really want to get started on this Rhino. I wanted to show something too that I should have shown in other videos and that was recently mentioned to me by a colleague. And just in case you ever look down at your recently used colors and you decide that you want to make that out into a palette, you totally can. Just click the Create New Color Palette, and then you just click each individual color and then hit the plus sign. So you could fill this whole palette up one by one and make a palette from all your recently used colors. So you could call this one Oranges and Creams, or you can call it African Sunset, whatever you want. Actually, I'll do that right now. So then you just hit the plus button, go here. You can even add a little imagey there, and there you got a new palette. So I thought that was kind of cool. For some reason, I've done it before, but I kind of forgot that it was that easy to do. It doesn't actually take that long. So just in case you ever see, you look down and your recently used colors, you can only have so many. So if you look down and you see it and you like it, you can make a new palette out of it. But just keep in mind that after it reaches a limit, the colors will keep on cycling and changing. So if you look down and you like it, use it at that moment, and then you can make yourself a new palette. I just wanted to touch base on that little point there. Okay, so let's get into our Rhino. These are all the palettes I've made. I've made so many. You can also, most of the time what I do is I pick from the color wheel, but some of these are, I remember some of my first ones I made were recently used colors. But yeah, you can definitely make it from the color wheel by going like this, or you can use it from picking your recent colors. Okay, so now that we've touched base on that, I'm going to go to my airbrush tool, and I'm going to, I'm thinking here, should I use that? I'm going to go to the pigment palettes just because I'm going to be using a lot of these kinds of tones for this. So normally I would lie down my darkest tone first and then peel away layers and go lighter. What I'm thinking, maybe, just trying to think here, give me a quick second. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that. So all you have to do is fill in your entire piece. Actually, I want it even darker. That's more of the gray I was thinking. So I'm going to use my darkest, and then I'll stick with, I was going to reverse it, but it's just going to take longer if I do it that way. So it makes more sense to put the darkest color as my base, and then I'll work upward. Also, it lets me color in the neck and whatnot too. So I like using the airbrush on a small brush size, but if you try to do it too small, it'll take forever. You could also open up the spread a little bit and cover a big area at once and stay away from the edges. And then you can just lower it back down and go over your edges after. And just be careful with the airbrush because it does have a wide spread. So when you press down hard, it tends to spread out a bit further. That's why I usually use about a brush size of 3 to 4, maybe 5 max to fill things. But I will do the widespread thing like I just showed you to fill in a good chunk of color, and then just go around my edges with the smaller brush size. Now, Rhino's horns seem to be almost the same color as their skin, so I'm gonna fill this in as well. I always like to do a little bit of research on animals before I color them. I find it really helps, and it gives you perspective, and it allows you to kind of visualize what you're coloring. So I find it's a really good tool, and it really helps. I haven't even really been looking at it because I've been coloring the sky. I will start to look at it though when I start adding all these details to the Rhino. So don't mind me if I'm quiet. I just don't have too much to say on the subject right now because it's just fill, right? And the good thing about using a dark color to lay down, like block it in first, because I always block in my piece first and then add my detail after, add my shading, add my highlighting. It's always been a process for me. So that's always what I've kind of done. Now, when you're doing, by blocking it in, it gives you, when you look back, it also gives you the opportunity to extend any lines when you're doing grayscales. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to extend the line and make his neck full. Same with here. I don't have to extend it nearly as much. This is a very sketched drawing. It's a very sketched out look. Oops. Yay for color match. So here the neck kind of has a little bit of definition and then breaks away right under the chin. So if you follow through that line, or even just follow it down, It usually takes me a couple of tries. But the closer that you zoom in on your animal, the more of a straight line you'll be able to make. Now just look back at your neck, make sure it makes sense. Yeah, makes sense, looks good. So I just created my own line only because I want it to look realistic, right? So sometimes you have to make the choice in grayscale whether or not you're going to go ahead and do that or not. So sometimes I leave it, but in this particular case I am not. So now I'm going to grab, I already have my pencil, and I'm going to play with my brush size and opacity. I'm going to be adding some shading in here. And I'm using the black, almost black anyway, to add shading in. The pencil is a really good tool to use because it has that built-in texture to it. So if you're trying to make textured skin like we are right now with the Rhino, then it is really good for stuff like that. Even foliage, leaves, flowers, that kind of stuff, it works very well for. So I try to follow the lines, even though it's a very kind of almost like a messy sketch, I would say. Not messy, but lines kind of going which way directions. I try to follow them as well as I can. You don't want to go against those natural shading cues. You usually want to kind of stay with them. And it doesn't have to be exact, but you'll know which parts are supposed to be darker because usually the heavier lined areas are supposed to be a little tad bit darker, right? I'm trying to stay in the lines as much as possible because I did my background and I don't want to have to fix it. I mean, I usually do have to do a couple touch-ups because I go to the lines at some point, but I'm gonna try my best not to. Now, there are shading cues like we were just talking about, but there aren't in some spots as well. So you kind of have to make up your mind where you want some little bit of a darker texture, especially under the neck. At a sunset, there should probably be a little bit more shading here. Doesn't have to be perfect. The lines don't have to be perfect because we're going to be going over it with other stuff. And I just kind of brush this where I think there should be, all around there should be texture on this guy, right? All of his skin is rough. So it's just a matter of getting it distributed and getting it out there. Okay, so I got a little bit more depth happening. It does look very dark, but we're gonna lighten it up in spots. So now is the time where I'm kind of looking at this rhino and seeing, because there's grooves, like all these grooves here, they're deep. It's like wrinkles in the skin. So above those wrinkles, I'm gonna want to add a little bit of lighter gray, maybe not that light, maybe more like, and just kind of get that little bit of lightness in there. And you can blend it out if you think it's too light. The horn is really jagged and has a lot of kind of details. I'm not going to do too much details on it though, even though there is a lot in the picture, just because I predominantly want him to be dark with highlights around on the skin. So that is what I'm going for here. So I said we were going to touch base on using a tool that I don't usually use, and that's most likely going to be the pastel brush. Because the pastel brush also has built-in texture and blending abilities, it's going to be nice when I put my highlights down, like I'm putting down very mild highlights, mind you. It's more, not so much highlights as it is kind of trying to get some texture in here. So I'm going to blend some of that out with the pastel brush. Right now I'm just blending back and forth, getting these colors kind of the way I want them. As you start to shape with the shading and the highlighting, I start to feel more of how the animal should be. And it gives me inspiration, if you want to call it that, to kind of get him looking like a rhino. Or whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm coloring. The more progress I make, the more inspired I get to complete the animal and get him looking like he's supposed to. Most of the time, it is a good idea to start with a darker base color like I did, because as you can see, it allows you to peel away layers, whereas you start with a lighter color, then you have to go back and kind of add all that stuff in, which can be a little bit of reverse layering, I guess you would call it. I don't want to do any reverse layering. Not today. Sometimes it does work out and look really cool though. Like there's definitely places where it does work. But with animals, I usually like to start with my darkest color. So now I'm using white and I'm going around and I'm overlayering some of those areas I went over with that light gray. I'm just kind of getting it in there. Because this area up here is actually going to be quite light when I'm done. Kind of, because there's not a whole lot of cues with the skin texture at the back, you kind of have to work it out yourself. Now, they almost have scales, rhinos, don't they? They have like these, or little like warded skin parts. I don't know what you would call them. So I'm just gonna go in. And highlight those a bit. And he does have some down here as well. Towards the jaw. I don't want to do too much because I do want the jaw to be darker, but I just want to emphasize some of this rough skin texture that the artist put in here, because it really does add to the overall effect of the picture. And you can make your own. You don't have to outline it or nothing, but you can just go and add little marks, little squares if you want. And it just adds to the texture. So I want to bring out the pastel just to demonstrate. I'm getting kind of used to the pencil here, so I just want to kind of show that you can push color around and blend with the pastel as well, which is a nice feature. Like if you want it a bit darker under here, the pastel's growing up to do some color matching here. You can push it around. And it's very fluid and it works really nicely. Gonna add a little bit more texture here so it's just not dark. The pastel. Just really pushing around color, and it blends, like I say, it blends effortlessly with the other colors you have down, so you really can't go wrong by using pastel brush. And it still leaves you with some texture, which is nice. And if you use it on a smaller brush size, it can be used for more accurate details as well. So I'm just kind of blending some of my highlights and leaving some texture, and the pastel kind of moves around the texture, so it takes it away and then adds it back. Mixes it. Now, maybe I'll just do a little bit more up here at the pastel. Okay, so you see how it kind of blends and gives you more of like, instead of just having stark lines everywhere, it makes it so it looks a bit more blended. And then after you blend it, you can add another layer of the pencil on top to give it more texture again. See, now he's really starting to come to life. Now you're starting to see a rhino. Which is good. It's what we want. I guess the whole trick with the rhino is just texture, 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 right? Because their skin is very rough. So let's go back to the pencil and add a little bit more texture. I like using my pencil on a wide scale. So I leave the brush size all the way up and press gently because it leaves a lot of texture. So I'm just doing certain areas here, adding that roughness. I'm going to bring down my brush size just a little bit, my opacity just a bit, maybe my brush size a bit more than that. I just want to get a little bit more kind of dabby texture in there. Kind of crisscross it every which way. Just to give it a bit more, to give them a bit more texture, make it stand out a bit more. And you can layer and go in between with the black where you made your texture, and it'll kind of give it some more depth, like it has, like he has lines, right? Like deep lines. So you see how it's kind of crisscrossing with the white and making skin almost come alive. And I'm just using pencil and dabbing. That's all I'm doing. And your brush is angled, if you notice. So if I go like this, my lines will always be from the pencil going this way, right? So if I dab, it goes that way. But if I go this way, then they're vertical. So you want to kind of crisscross those methods. So you're getting angled strokes every which way, so it looks more realistic. because the skin naturally pits in different ways, right? It's not all going one way. It'll go down. You have different lines going down, going up. So by doing it like that, you get natural looking pitting in the skin. So really good tools for texture that we basically are going to be coloring this whole rhino with the pencil tool. And then of course we used the pastel. And when you crisscross those lines with the black, it just does something to the look of the skin. It just makes it come alive. And you don't have to crisscross the colors everywhere. You can definitely leave it some places and blend it some others, and it's just however you feel with it, right? Get some texture in that horn too, why not? So now you can look back at your piece and kind of decide if you want to blend any of it out or if you want to leave it. Now to blend it out, you can use the pastel, because the pastel, what it does is it keeps some of that texture so you don't lose it all. Now I would color match and bring your brush size down and your opacity down. Color match one of the medium toned colors and just blend a little bit. You don't have to over blend or blend a lot, just a little bit, just to make it look, give it some blended spots with the roughness, if that makes sense. Because even though the rhino is rough, it does have smooth areas. Amidst all of the texture, there are smooth areas on a rhino. Just to get some of that smoothness in there. Now you're not taking away all of it. You're just blending it. So now you're getting more of the bumpy look that we want. You want more of a bumpy look. And by blending it and keeping some of that texture with those crisscross hatching type technique or whatever, you're gonna get the bumpy skin look, which a rhino is, right? So I'm gonna leave him for now because I just want to go to my airbrush tool, and I'm just basically using it to fix where I went out of the lines. That's all. So I'm just color matching and going under here and cleaning it up. good. This is where it gets hard to color match because there's so many layered colors. I think that's good for now. Now that I see my rhino done, I'm just going to smooth out a little bit of this glitter. And that's why I didn't want to go too crazy with everything that I was doing with the sky, because I never quite know. I like getting most of my color down, but there's always adjustments to be made after I've colored my piece. Like I would say 95% of the time, there's always some kind of adjustment that I make. I'm going to use my pastel. I'm just getting more of like that streaky sunset that I wanted. There's still glitter in there, not as much. It is getting blended out a bit here. But it was far too much for the look I was going for. But it's still there. Pastel is perfect for blending, just amazing for blending. Okay, now I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. Just give me a sec here. I just want to try something. Nope. Okay, we need... Nope. Okay, so it's gonna have to be done with the laser, I think. I'll just color match that. Would probably be better, nice orange. I'm just trying to get a nice balance of this laser here. Just using the blender to kind of pull the color so it doesn't look like such a straight highlight. Then go back to the laser. Very delicate to get the laser the way you want it. Sometimes it takes me a couple of tries. So I'm just going to grab pastel again, and I just want to blend a little bit here. Just blending it back and forth, the colors I mean. So I color match and blend a little bit that way, color match, blend a little bit that way. I want it to look like the sun is coming from the sky, but in a natural way. And I just want to touch up here a bit with my pencil tool. Just lost a little bit more texture than I wanted to with the laser. Go to my pastel, just blend it out a bit. Using the white to reflect it a little bit too, right? White always works for reflecting. Could even use the glitter again a little bit. And the white, of course. Bring up the opacity a bit. If you want, you could use the glitter. It's not necessary, but just to show. Just blending that highlight out because I want it to look like a natural highlight. I don't want it to look so fake. So I used a little bit of laser, but I blended. I used everything that I did. I used the pastel to blend it out with. So there really is a lot of opportunity to have a lot of really nice effects with the pastel brush. Almost think of it as your other blender. It's great. A textured blend, I should say. I'm just gonna go through, touch up a couple areas here, and I'm pretty satisfied with how the Rhino looks. I'm not doing much to the eyes, and that's mainly because honestly, when I'm looking at this picture here, the Rhino's eyes they're black. So I'll just highlight, you know, maybe the glare there a little bit, and then maybe here put a little bit more light color here, just because I find it looks pretty deep and dark. Just a little bit to add some balance. So that's all I do at the end. So I just look at my picture and think of what I can do or what should be done to make it look more natural. Sometimes you're so in your coloring you don't even notice when you make a mistake, right? So, and what I might do is I might level off this red. I'm gonna go to my airbrush, deepen up that red. I'm just going to kind of get that deepness around the edges again. So it really is like sunset, right? Don't be afraid to add, it's almost like a vignette. I do it a lot in my pictures when I'm done, is I kind of just add this little outline. I just find it helps you unfocus to the picture but focus at the same time. If you find it's a little too much, you can always just blend it out slightly. But otherwise, I think it's really great tool to add depth to your picture. Just little last minute things. Okay, there's my rhino. I hope that this was fun for you guys and that it was a little bit of a game changer when it came to the pastel brush, and that you think about using it a little bit more when it comes to making texture and all kinds of things. And I hope that it was informative in other ways as well, creating backgrounds. We would really love to hear from you. If you have any requests on anything that you would like to see colored, please comment below and we will get to that for you. Thanks for hanging out. This is Brianne from Pixite, and have a great day, everybody. Bye.